When we talk about micro influencers, we are talking about influencing your target audience of prospects. That in and of itself is already very limiting, but that's very limiting in a good way because you don't want to be attracting people who are in your field, or you don't want to be attracting people who are never going to buy from you. You want to be attracting prospects. Best way to do that is to become a micro influencer. And that's knowing what they want to hear about, knowing the problems that they want solved, and knowing about their issues and all that type of stuff, and then creating content that addresses those issues.
Bob Woods was one of the first people on LinkedIn, literally. He joined in December 2003 when LinkedIn was just a few months old, and he's never looked back. An award-winning salesperson, Bob has utilized LinkedIn and social selling even before social selling was a quote-unquote thing. Bob has trained and coached sales professionals around the world at companies big and small to effectively use LinkedIn and other tools to start sales conversations with qualified buyers. Specific companies where he has trained professionals and teams include Experian, Penn Mutual, State Street, Trios, and UPS. He is the CMO of Social Sales Link, a company that guides sales and business professionals to grow their businesses by leveraging LinkedIn to start more targeted conversations. They call him the LinkedIn Sherpa, and I am so excited to have him on Prospecting on Purpose. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sarah. It's fantastic to be here, and I appreciate you so much for asking me to be on.
Oh, I can't wait. I know we have a ton to get into, so I'm just going to jump right in and ask you. I have to ask the origin story. What's behind the nickname, the LinkedIn Sherpa?
Well, that actually comes about from the CEO of the company, Bryn Tillman. If you're in LinkedIn and social selling, you probably heard her name a lot more than mine, which is fine because that's what she does. So her kind of nickname is the LinkedIn Whisperer. So we decided, okay, we think Bob needs a nickname. Yada, yada, yada. So I'm like back there thinking, and I really view myself as a guide, like in the truest sense possible. So whenever we've been overseas, we hire guides, and we hire personal guides, and we try to go one-on-one, or one with me and my wife, as much as possible. So a guide to me is someone who knows what they're doing, who knows everything, or as much as they can, about everything all about them, while having an ultimate goal. And in those situations, the ultimate goal is like a guided tour of the Parthenon or of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Like Leaning Tower of Pisa one, our guide also told us about many other things around the actual tower, and about how other things lean there because of the soil and everything else, and just way too much stuff for me to get into, or quite frankly even remember right now. But that's kind of how I view myself, as a true guide. Now, LinkedIn guide just doesn't sound good. And I've always liked just that word Sherpa, just because I think it sounds cool. And a Sherpa is a guide, essentially. It's just, it's just a synonym, basically. So ergo,
The
LinkedIn
LinkedIn
Sherpa.
Sherpas on the show. Well, I
Yeah.
have been working with the Social Sales Link team and have been part of your community for the past couple of months. And I can vouch for you as an excellent Sherpa, an excellent guide. To orient the audience, can you give a quick overview of Social Sales Link and what does social selling mean? It's kind of a two-part question there.
Yeah, sure. So what Social Sales Link does is really help, whether it's large, medium, even small organizations, or people who are working more as individuals, whether it's an entrepreneur for a small company or professional coaches and things like that. We help them get conversations started on LinkedIn without being salesy. So, in other words, a very genuine, approachable approach, I guess you could say, or something like that. But, very genuine, very authentic. We don't use automation. We are starting to use AI, but even with AI, there are ways to use AI that are genuine and authentic. And we teach all of that and much, much more, with that goal of ultimately starting sales conversations with the people who are either buying, or if if you're in a B2B type of situation where you need to get to multiple people because of that old statistic that there are 6.8 people involved in every B2B buying decision. We also help people get to the other potential decision makers and hopefully the actual decision makers within companies to also start conversations with them in an effort to get everybody at the at the prospect company on board and get the proverbial signatures on the dotted line.
Awesome. So it's you're prospecting, but you're using LinkedIn as the tool. And I think that's why I gravitate to your group so much, because I do feel that authenticity. I do feel the genuine piece. And so I'm excited to get into some of the like more meaty, like tactical tools that we can use here. So
Yeah.
one question that I have is just kind of at a very high level. What are some of the most impactful ways sellers can either use LinkedIn to develop relationships or increase their sales? Like from a 30,000-foot view, what are the biggest things that people should be focusing on?
30,000-foot view, I would say three main things. So, number one would be commenting on other people's posts. So that's a really big one for a couple different reasons. One, it's a good way to show your authenticity as well as your thought leadership through commenting on the content from other people, because not only is the original poster seeing that, all of the people within their network is seeing it too. As so that's all very important. Obviously, if you're doing this, you can't just put down, great post, Stan, and
Yeah.
then just leave it like that, because otherwise you might as well just click like and just moved on. You really need to add value. You need to add your voice to whatever the subject is that was posted, whether you're what we call yes and, which is a principle in improv, you're agreeing and you're adding something else. If you're adding something a little different, framing things a little different way, that's fine too. Just make sure that you're adding value to whatever the post was so that you start to stand out as a thought leader in whatever area that you're in, essentially. So, commenting on other people's posts is big. It's probably bigger than, especially if you're just starting out. And if you're like 2024, it's going to be my year to be on LinkedIn. I'm gonna own LinkedIn. That is probably the best way to get started. I've actually heard of people eventually getting deals just from comments that they've made on other people's posts. So
Okay.
it actually does work.
Engagement is number one. Awesome.
Engagement's number one. Number two is sharing. So sharing content. So again, this has to be in a value-added thought leadership way in whatever industry that you're in. This is where, oh, and this also applies to the first one too. You can't be salesy. We have been emphasizing lately, and probably a little more than lately, but we haven't been putting it like this. You really can't be salesy. Just don't talk about how you help people and just help people.
Okay.
Don't be salesy. Don't do this expecting to push someone to a gated page that has content that they need to put their name and email address in to get. Just help them.
Okay.
Help them out. And if you're going to refer them to somewhere, maybe you can do that. That is kind of salesy. Just help people out with your content. And you can do that just in a simple post. You can do it potentially with a poll. So LinkedIn has polls. When polls first launched, people went nuts with them and used them for all types of stupid things. Thank God we're like over that hump, I hope, at least in what I've been seeing. And people are now using them for what they should be used for. And that's the genuine gathering of opinions and thoughts on whatever subject it is. If you decide to do the poll, you should then plan on doing like an ebook or something like that with the results of the poll, and then adding your perspective on whatever it is again that the poll was on. And obviously again, that could be a wide variety of things. But not only are you kind of reporting what was in that poll, but you're also giving your perspective to the responses that were in the poll. You can also do videos. I think video, although it's not as impactful on the LinkedIn algorithm as it used to be, I still think video is big because not a lot of people are doing it still, even though you do see them more and more. But I think it's very impactful just to watch someone talking about whatever it is that they're talking about, because it's much more than just text. You're actually seeing emotion. You're seeing their eyes. Again, you can't do that in text. And
Right.
video is not only important for posts, but next to no one is doing video in direct messages.
Oh,
That's where it really gets important, because in direct messages, you can talk to the person, it's still a one-way conversation. But again, it's much better than text because you get context, you get emotion, you get someone, starting out in a message with, hi, Sarah, just got your recent message. I thought it was great. Whatever you want to say next. I mean,
it's
even
not an
just something
AI
simple
bot
like that.
making the message either.
Well, yeah, as of now, it's not.
Yeah. Well, true. Good
God,
point. As of December
I
2023, it
Yes, right. As of December 2023, it's probably not. I mean, there are some video AIs. It's starting to get fairly good, but it's still not great. But everyone's like, well, is it going to be better in a year or two or something like that? And the one thing that I always say about AI is no matter what guess you make, half that in terms of time, if not even more, because it's going to happen, because things are just happening so quick in AI. And we talked before about how we're not going to focus on AI because we could do an entire show just on AI. And so, quite frankly, if I said something now, it would probably be out of date by the time this actually makes your drops. So, AI, it's incredible. I think it's going to be huge in terms of a trend in 2024, not only on LinkedIn, but on sales in general. But again, that's like another mind blowing topic that deserves an entire episode on its own, as well as adult beverages on the side to
yeah.
take it all in.
For the human made versus AI made. So,
Yeah.
listeners, if you want more details on AI for LinkedIn, we will direct you to Bob's podcast because he has a plethora of deep dive content. So we can't get into it now, but
Yep.
I love so like engaging video polls, putting together like value adds seems to be kind of the trend I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah, just delivering value and then adding to that value. And polls is probably the best way to do that. So with that content, especially with that value added content. So the third thing that we're going to talk about is profiles. So everybody's like, profiles, who cares? It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. They are huge. Just think of it like this. If you're commenting or if you're posting, there are going to be people based on hopefully the kick-ass content that you have in either one of those things, they're going to want to click through to your profile. So
Mhm.
if they click through to your profile and there's nothing there, or if it's all really salesy and like the digital equivalent of the stereotypical, and I do mean stereotypical here because there are a lot of good of them out there, but a stereotypical used car salesman, you're going to turn them off just completely and totally. The profile needs to be just as value added, just as value driven, just as thought leadership promoting, just as educational as the content that you put out there. If it's not, people are going to get turned off. End
Mhm.
of subject.
Or they don't see a reason to follow you or to
Or
connect
they
with.
don't, or they don't even see a reason to follow you or connect with you or potentially even reach out to you directly via
Okay. So
message or whatever. Yeah.
that was 30,000 foot view. I want to dive into that topic in a minute, but before we do, I want to talk about like the biggest mistakes people make too, because I get turned off on LinkedIn often and I'm, nervous I'm turning people off or listeners are maybe thinking the same thing and that's why they're not even trying. So what are some of the biggest mistakes people make? And then we'll get into some of the good stuff.
Well, let's bring back AI just really quick, just for this one thing, for the one thing that you told me
Yeah.
about that happened to you. Do you actually want to share? Because I honestly think that that's the perfect example of AI gone wrong and why you shouldn't do this. So
Yeah.
go ahead with your
So
story real
Bob
quick,
and I
sir.
were chatting and I told him this story. For listeners that are connected to me on LinkedIn, you maybe remember not too long ago, I posted a photo of me and my last living grandma, Grandma Murray. And I had asked her, what were some keys to longevity? And I had a lot of engagement. It was just a sweet little like Friday post. And somebody I didn't know, the only comment on the post said, "Thank you for writing and sharing your grandparents' sales journey." And I was dying to write back and say, AI did not support you here, sir. AI did you dirty. But I didn't want to call that person out and embarrass them. But it was so obvious that it was not a real comment.
Right. Yeah. So that was either scraped directly by an AI, or there are tools out there to where you can actually read something and then have AI generate something for you, and then you can change it if you want that. I'm not sure which route the person who originally took this or actually made that comment did, but it's obvious that they didn't care about what was up there because they left that ridiculous comment there.
Yeah. It
You
was
know,
so dumb.
so
It was, like, so
yeah,
obviously dumb, and so
so obviously
interesting.
dumb.
Okay, so
Yeah.
using AI and not having the human eye to spot check it is big.
Right.
What else?
Just being way too salesy. So when it comes to, I mean, I've had people reach out to me all the time via direct messaging, via InMail, and just start pitching and just pitch down your throat, essentially, for lack of a better phrase. I mean, no one, or very, 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 very few people like to be pitched to in an immediate approach. I mean, a lot of us don't like to be pitched at all. They like to have conversations. That's what we're all about. But a lot of other people out there just view LinkedIn as another form of cold calling. If you do that, if you get maybe possibly potentially one deal out of it, and that's like a big maybe, how many people are you turning off in the process who will never do business with you just to get that one possible deal?
Right.
So, don't DM people, don't in-mail people. I've seen people even pitch in their connection requests to me. And it's just like, you just can't do that. It's supposed to be a social element to
Right.
this. And, with a pitch, it's either a yes or a no. And for most people, it's going to be a no. And it's not necessarily because of the product, it's because they don't want to be freaking pitched to.
Right. I have received in mail with direct pitches. It's like whatever their niche is so specific that they're using acronyms I don't understand. Like sometimes I want to write back, like, I don't even understand what you're asking me in this direct pitch.
Yeah.
Like, what is not even because I want to buy their product. I almost just want to give feedback. Like, this is not an approach.
Yeah.
Or my biggest pet peeve is when people connect with you with the whole, love to have you in your network, and then it turns into like a 5 message pitch on lead
Mhm.
generation or whatever it is. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. But now I'm even more
Yep.
irritated because you Trojan horsed me into a connection and
Yeah.
then started pitching me.
Yeah, that's another one of our older phrases, but we still use connect and pitch is a bait and switch, which
Yeah.
is precisely what it is. It's a bait and switch. We do not bait and the way we teach social selling, we do not bait and switch on anything. We will smack your knuckles with a ruler if you do that. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. It probably feels bad when you even do it. If not, you may want to evaluate your life choices, but if it feels bad when you're doing it, you shouldn't do it. If you kind of get that, kind of
Mm,
slimy sales feel when you're doing something, you probably just shouldn't be doing it. You should figure out a way to do it in an authentic, genuine, value added way.
nice. Like a little gut check. Do the gut check.
Yeah, gut check. Yeah, that's fewer words, same idea. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, I love it. So, okay, so big mistakes. I think those ones are some obvious ones. I would
Yes.
like to get into where you see some of the biggest trends for 2024. I know you gave us kind of a 30,000 foot view, but now let's get a little closer to the tarmac and talk about what you see things evolving for 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, so I think that B2B influencers, so what we call micro influencers, and sometimes people use that as a negative term, but that's normally like, the big influencers, like, oh, you're just a micro influencer, blah, 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 blah. They see it negative. We see it as a positive because when we talk about micro influencers, we are talking about influencing your target audience of prospects. That in and of itself is already very limiting, but that's very limiting in a good way because you don't want to be attracting people who are in your field, or you don't want to be attracting people who are never going to buy from you. You want to be attracting prospects. Best way to do that is to become a micro influencer.
Mm,
And that's knowing what they want to hear about, knowing the problems that they want solved, and knowing about their issues and all that type of stuff, and then creating content that addresses those issues. So then again, this goes to, being a micro influencer, there's that thought leadership component embedded into it. You want to be the thought leader in your industry. You want to be what I used to call the go-to gal or go-to
mhm.
guy. We're just calling you go-to person now.
Yes.
Whatever you want to say, you want to be that person. Being that person involves being a micro influencer. And in our case, a micro influencer is a damn good thing.
Okay, I love that because that kind of gives
Yeah.
you takes some of the pressure off of, oh, this person is 15,000 LinkedIn followers,
Yeah.
70,000 LinkedIn followers, like
Yeah.
that.
Who cares?
Okay, I agree
Who
with you.
cares? You want to have, if you have 750 followers, but each and every single one of those people are prospects, that's all you need. You're not a Kardashian.
That's not what LinkedIn's built for. Hopefully,
Yeah,
that's not the
exactly.
2024 trend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Micro influencer, I love that. And I think about my following is it's not huge, but I do feel like people are pretty engaged. And I hired a marketing
Yeah.
intern just to support me because it's time consuming to do all this
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah. Without a
he,
doubt.
yeah, he made a comment. He said, Sarah, you're getting like 30, 40 people engaging on your posts when the same people that have 15,000 followers are getting the same 30 or 40. So like the ratio is different because it's more engaged, like your percentage is more engaged. And I never thought about it that way. So thank you to everyone who likes my stuff.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
And you're doing a much, much better job than those other influencers too, because you're hitting your audience in a much more meaningful and impactful way to the point where they are taking the time to leave thoughtful comments.
Oh, thank you for
Those
saying
macro influencers, if they get likes or whatever, I mean, it takes nothing to go boop
that.
and you're liking there. To leave a comment is somebody giving you their time to give you their thought on something, and that's a gift in and of itself.
Right. And I think for people listening, it's such an easy way to, I call them like emotional bank account deposits. It's such an
Yep.
easy way. It costs you no money. It takes 30 seconds or less, but if somebody puts something out there, throw them a comment because it's going to mean something to them. And so I think that's where I try to come from. It's like, oh, somebody took the time to put together this really thoughtful post. Like, I'm going to engage on it. And I want to get better at that in 2024. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, that's definitely huge, not only from the courtesy standpoint. So, I mean, if someone comments on your content, even if it is a great post, if nothing else, thank them for it. Sometimes it's a great way to advance your thought leadership even more. If they've commented in a value added type of way, you can be on top of that. The other big thing is and I forget the specific numbers right now, just know from again, from that 30,000 foot view, when you comment or when you reply to people's comments, that also helps you in the LinkedIn algorithm.
The algorithm.
The algorithm. There should
Like
be reverb there.
I know, like
Algorithm.
I need to have sound effects on the show because sometimes I mean, I gotta be honest with you. Sometimes LinkedIn makes me want to like bang my head against the window. You try stuff,
Oh
doesn't.
yeah.
I'm sure you know.
I yeah, I am the proverbial LinkedIn Sherpa, and yet I want to bang my head. I've got a wall like 4 feet in front of me right here, and I'm shocked that there are not forehead impressions in there already.
Yeah. And I think about maybe you could give us a little pep talk or a takeaway. Like if you post, because one of the things that kills me with my LinkedIn news feed, and maybe this would be I would guess it's something you would advise not to do, is people just posting pictures of their products. Like, here's this new light fixture that came out. I see a lot of product promotion, but it's like, what am I doing with that? Like, I'd rather see a case study or an application of where they used it. I see a lot of products out there and I just think it's so boring. So I'm like, oh, let's throw in a video. Let's throw in something fun just to like mix up people's news feeds. But I
Yeah,
don't know, that's the right
yeah,
move. I just
definitely.
throwing spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I get that. So I do think that sometimes with a product launch, you could possibly do some value add there in the actual comments, depending on what the product is. So it's really difficult for me to speak to that. But a video showing the product is
Mm,
really good, especially if you can hold the product. And there are a lot of times when people sell stuff that you can't hold. And there's just nothing you can do about that. But if you can somehow demonstrate it on video, even if it's like a short 45-second video, even that gives more context, even though it is essentially an ad. You are delivering information from that rather than a PDF of a slick that just came out of a product sheet or whatever. I mean, you have to start thinking more along those lines with adding value. It can be done even with something as important yet mundane, important to you, mundane to everyone else as a product launch. You have to start thinking more about the value that you're delivering in every share that you do and every comment that you do. Deliver value in your profile. It's all going to be about value. This isn't anything new, but so many people don't do it. I think it's always a trend. I'm just waiting for this trend to take off because it
Right.
deserves to take off.
I have an acronym. I say ABAV, always be adding value.
Yeah.
And I
I like
haven't
that.
necessarily, I appreciate that you guys put it in the framework of anything you do on LinkedIn, because I have been using it as when you're interacting with your clients, how can you develop
Oh
those
yeah.
emotional
Oh
bank
yeah,
accounts?
without a
But
doubt.
I
Yep.
love that you have that as the almost like the North Star for when people are doing anything on LinkedIn. That has to be like, we need to post a note that on our computers and make sure that that's where we're coming from for 2024.
Could not agree more.
What other trends for 2024? So we have micro influencer, always add value in any type of
Yeah.
interaction. What else and AI, of course, is going to be part of our lives. So we have to learn to love it, or at least work alongside it. What other
Yeah.
trends do you see for 2024?
One that I'm hoping that happens is verification. So people are probably starting to see more on their profiles about verification. So in other words, this is when you provide your credentials somehow, and there are a couple different ways to do this through to LinkedIn. Sometimes it's directly to LinkedIn, other times it's through Clear, who are the annoying people at the airport who pitch you about their service whenever you're going through lines. But Clear at airports basically gets you past everything directly to the place where you go with the luggage and everything else. Clear on LinkedIn, they're basically verifying your identity so that people who visit profiles, they'll now see that shield on there. It's better than a check mark on Twitter/X or Instagram because you pay for those there, but you really don't need anything else. With verification on LinkedIn, they are actually verifying you. So that is a much more secure way of knowing at least that the person who you're dealing with is an actual person and not some profile that companies set up. Because sometimes, unfortunately, companies set
Yeah.
up profiles that aren't real. LinkedIn just won something against a couple companies that were setting up fake profiles and trying to get sales from them.
Ew, so
Guess
the
what? None
catfishing.
of those are going to be verified. So, yeah, I think
Okay.
that verification is going to be a trend that takes off in 24 because people are going to want to know that who they're talking to is real. And now that LinkedIn is providing a way to do that, I'm hoping, wishing, and thinking that that's something that's going to take off. And if not, it sure as hell should.
Well, if you're listening to this, I did the verification process. It's easy. And so
Yeah, it's
that's something
very
people
easy.
could do right now as they're listening to this,
Yep.
get verified on their LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And do you have any other trends before we get into some of the profile questions I want to ask you?
Yeah, so I mean, another one that I think and hope is just has to do with profile optimization. And the one thing I know that we're going to be going through some specific stuff, but the one thing that I want to encourage everyone, and we just talked about this on our own podcast yesterday, is your customers and your prospects concerns or problems or whatever, they change over time. And I'm betting that with 2023 being the year that it was, they've changed probably pretty significantly. Is Does your profile reflect their new concerns? Does your content and content plan going forward reflect those concerns? You need to either start just talking to people or maybe even doing polls on those subjects. What's your biggest concern in 2024? And your respective industries. So, put in like, option A, option B, option C, and then option D in a poll is always other share and comments because you're going to want people who have different ones to actually share what their concern is in comments. But you really need to not make assumptions that everyone's still going to be the same in 2024 as in 2023. Get out there, talk to people, poll them, whatever you do, find out what their concerns are, and then start angling your profile and start designing your content towards those concerns,
That's
those new or altered
Yeah,
concerns.
that's excellent. And that's really, I think, like definition of thought leadership is you're staying ahead of
Yep.
it. Oh, thank you, Sherpa. This is a great
Yeah.
example.
I don't know how to respond. You're welcome. Let's just leave it at that.
Talking about the profile, then, what are like the most important pieces of someone's LinkedIn profile?
Three, probably, well, four areas are going to be the most important. The what we call the top of the fold, which is your photo, your banner, and especially your headline. So we call that top of the fold because hopefully, you know, just like, you know, old style newspapers, remember
Yeah.
those people? You know, newspapers were designed so that when you fold them over and you're passing by a newsstand, hopefully it'll entice you enough to buy them. Same thing with the LinkedIn profile, except you're trying to entice people to scroll further down.
Mm.
So everything needs to be constructed in a value added way. It needs some kind of eye catching banner, which could be, and banners really run the gamut of what you can do with those. And there's all kinds of philosophies behind that. If there's one overall arching thing I would just urge people to do is to just have one. You don't want to have that big, ugly gray blob up there.
Right.
With your photo, a photo of how you show up every day for work. So if you're like me right now, if you're not seeing me, you know, in the winter, I'm in a quarter zip and a shirt underneath. I'm not going to wear a three-piece suit in my profile photo because I don't even own a three-piece suit.
Right.
So, you know, show up as how you normally show up so that people aren't surprised. Also, don't use a 10-year-old photo of yourself or, you know, one that's dated somehow. Just me personally, I've lost about 100 pounds in the past 2 years. Any of my old photos do not look like how I am nowadays. I also had more hair back then. I shave it all off now. You know, I look different than I used to. If someone would get, especially in the era of Zoom nowadays, if you don't look pretty much like your profile photo, when someone gets on a Zoom call with you, they're already going to be a little suspicious because it's like, okay, this person doesn't look like what they look like on LinkedIn. I wonder what else doesn't track about them.
It's like online
I think
dating.
it's
Like,
very
oh,
important.
this isn't what it
Yeah, yeah,
looks like in the
exactly.
pictures, or the catfishing fake profiles. Oh,
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about that.
Swipe left. Swipe
Yeah.
left.
Well,
Sure.
congratulations on your health journey. That's amazing.
Oh, thank
Congratulations.
you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just use that as you know, just an example that, you know, people's looks do change over the years. And even if you're taking a photo or someone else is taking a photo of you on their phone, you know, just make sure it's in a neutral background and everything else. If you want to go the professional route, that's fine. There are some AI photo tools out there now that I've seen that are actually they're actually pretty
I've
amazing.
seen some
So
cool ones too. It's like you can
yeah,
have 6 different
there's
outfits on for a photo that like
right.
your camera. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so banner must have one. Maximize that. Photo
Yeah.
must be current.
Yeah.
What are the other couple things?
Headline.
Dun dun
Do we
dun.
wanna dun, dun, dun. Do we wanna talk about that right
Yes.
now?
So, to the audience, I have been kind of putting off a LinkedIn profile refresh for a couple reasons. One, because I knew I had access to Bob and Bryn and the team and wanted to, if I'm going to redo it, I want to not have to do it all the time. I want to do it right. But I have struggled with my LinkedIn headline because I know you're supposed to niche down and talk about the problems you solve and specifically who you help. But one of the things that I have been struggling with is that I have a lot of different types of clientele. And so my customer is a little bit of a mixed bag. And then I have a lot of different balls in the air. So I right now we can read my profile and I have asked Bob to help me real time make it better and make it more substantial and value centric.
Yeah, so all of that for me as someone who is coming in with you know, with an eye to making because we call them profile makeovers because that's what they are.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are taking the base and just and making it better so that it achieves a goal. So, with that, why don't you read your current headline
Okay.
there,
So my
Sarah?
current headline on my LinkedIn profile is sales and marketing consultant, sales coach, author, speaker, host of Prospecting on Purpose podcast. That's it.
So you're right. There are several balls going there. And also, if you have her profile up, which is linkedin.com/in/Sarah Murray sales,
Yeah.
all one word, you're also going to notice that in her banner is her podcast. So as of right now, if I'm seeing all of this stuff along with the banner, I'm thinking she's a podcaster.
Oh, yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
We all know better.
Yeah.
So I would actually suggest changing the banner to
Yeah.
maybe incorporate the podcast. I'm not saying get rid of the podcast, but to also somehow, and this is where design and everything comes in and my mind gets blown with the possibilities. So I'm not going to suggest anything specific here, but just in general to work you know, work that other stuff in there as well
Into the banner.
into the banner.
Oh, that's so interesting. All the pieces work together for that first impression. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So what would you recommend for the banner? I know we're talking about headlines, but like a picture of me hosting a
Yeah.
workshop or group or more text
You know,
driven.
maybe a text strip. If you want to look at mine, mine's actually pretty good, although mine doesn't mention the podcast that I do, Making Sales Social, but there is a bit you get more of a flavor of what I do there in my banner. If listeners want to go there, it's linkedin.com/in/Bob Woods. If you want to connect with me, please feel free or follow me. But you know,
I will link it in the
that
show notes too, team.
yeah, that's cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. So, that one's much more representative. It lists some of the companies that are up there, as well as what I do, as well as a little graphical representation of like, LinkedIn and our
Your
thing as
company.
well.
You, yeah.
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
coffee
So,
cups cheersing. I love it.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and this is where one of those, it really depends on what you want to do because there are so many different ways to tackle it. But I do think that if you take like just what the elements are of what's in there of mine,
Mhm.
transfer it over to what
Okay.
you do, add podcasting, and then put whatever visual spin you want to on it because I know
Okay.
you're a visual person and you can make that work. And then from there, then that kind of leads down into the headlines. So if you are a client of mine, one of the things that I would want, and you've already addressed that, is, who are you trying to attract? Who are your prospects essentially?
Mhm.
And that would be, sometimes it's verticals, sometimes it's verticals plus titles, sometimes it's just, any business owner, it's so wide and varied just with people in general. But now, Sarah Murray, who is your prospect?
Well, I support B2B sales teams. I support B2C companies and then entrepreneurs, basically anyone who finds themselves in a sales role. And then maybe where my niche is focusing on the prospecting relationship part of that process. So like the beginning part of the sales cycle. But then it's
Okay.
tricky because like B2B and B2C and people that are finding themselves in sales roles like entrepreneurs or real estate agents, travel agents, like people that have to go sell themselves.
So just based on that, I'm actually changing something here really quick. So here's kind of like I wouldn't even consider this a full first draft or a beta
Yeah,
version. I'd consider this like alpha minus.
got it.
But so one of the things that people face when it comes to encapsulating who they help is trying to find that term or phrase that encapsulates several things so that when you have people visiting your profile, you want them to feel like that they're in the right place. And
Mm,
the easiest way to do that is to identify them through what's in your headline and also what's in your about section, but that's a little bit later. So I would say something like empowering sales professionals and teams to prospect effectively, and then maybe a pipe there, and then tailored training, marketing strategies, client-centric solutions. And then what was that one phrase you just said when you said when it comes right down to it, I just want salespeople to, what was that again? I'm trying to remember.
oh, no, I don't even remember either. Prospect more effectively or prioritize like
It was a little
prioritize
more
the
catchy than that.
prioritize the relationship part of the sales process. Because one of the things that I keep seeing, Bob, is that
Mhm,
usually our competitor isn't the competing product, it's the relationship the competitor salesperson has with our
mhm.
clients. So I want
Yeah.
to capture that, but I don't know if the headlines were to do it. So thanks for workshopping this with me.
Yeah, definitely. So, this is probably going to be one of those times where I'm going to say we need to go back and look at the transcript because you said something that I think encapsulated that
Okay.
perfectly. So, whatever that was,
Okay.
that's how you
We're
ended up there.
recording. I'll go back and
Yeah.
revisit.
Yeah, we'll do that a little later. But I mean, but just having like a little turn of the phrase at the
Yeah.
end that kind of encapsulated everything you just said, but like in a clever yet businessy way, which I wish I could remember what it was because it was great. But ending up a headline like that, I think is
Okay.
a really good way to do it too. But definitely you want to try to have four elements in your headline: who you help, how you help them, the solutions you provide, and the results that you bring.
Okay. Okay. So that's like the formula then. Can you say that one more
That
time?
is kind of who you help, how you help them, the results that you provide, and the solutions that you provide them with, essentially.
Okay. Okay. I think that now I'm starting to work it together in my head of those different pieces. Like
Sure.
like empowering sales professionals to maximize their relationship skill. I'm gonna like biff it as I'm running through
Oh,
it. But I
no,
like
that's okay.
like
That's what this process is about.
I
It's a
mean
process.
yeah, like the results truly are more confidence to talk to the high level decision makers, like just more increased
Mhm.
confidence in yourself and like embracing your authentic self to then use that as your differentiator when you're selling to your prospects. And the
Yeah.
results are more confidence. And
Yeah.
it's very like tactical skills that we
Yeah.
talk about. Okay. And then I
Yeah.
don't need to leverage the podcast in there because I can do that in the banner or incorporate that in the banner.
You can incorporate in that in the banner. You can mention that if you want to in the about section. I would probably do
Mm.
that at the very end. And then definitely you can look at my profile to see how we did this. But in your company page, you can actually showcase the podcast, and then you can then link to it in your experience section.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to creep on yours then and follow the
Creep
Sherpa.
away.
Yes.
Creep away.
And
Yeah,
so, okay.
exactly.
So thank you for just putting it out there. You're value.
There have been once or twice when a guy has said to us, "I'm talking." I was like, "Oh, sorry."
Oh, I would never do that to you, but I've
Yeah,
definitely
no,
had that happen to me
no, no,
too.
no, it's funny. It's funny, actually. It's really funny. It took me back to Italy there for a minute. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm the guide. You're listening to me. No, we don't do that here. Try not to. But I feel like one of the things that's been very cool about just this whole past year is you are able to use LinkedIn to meet so many amazing people. Like having you
Yeah,
on the podcast right now, we have never met in person. I know you live in
correct.
Kentucky. I do not live in
Mhm.
Kentucky. I've met so many people this year through LinkedIn and through just genuine like value add. And I think it's really cool and special. So I
Yeah,
appreciate your
right.
time being on the show because I think it just proves exactly your point with the Social Sales Link team on how powerful LinkedIn can really be.
Yeah, and it's social. I mean, people really need to keep that in mind. I mean, we always wrap up our podcasts and things like that is, always be sure to make your sales social. That's and it's more than just a cute tagline for us that kind of unifies each podcast episode. It really is true. Make your
Right.
sales social.
Right. I like that a lot. So you had one more thing in the profile. You said four things.
Okay, yeah. So I'll go over those really quick. So featured section. So
Mm,
there's actually two more left. Featured section, really quick. That is where you put your educational content in there, whether it's from a website, whether it's from a post, especially like a successful post, you can actually list that stuff directly into your featured section. Just a tip there, always make sure that it's as current as possible. Think of the featured section like a produce section in a store. You
ooh,
always want to see fresh, nice stuff in there that brings value to you. In other words, when you eat it at that point, same type of thing, except in content form. So content is, your content pieces are your cabbage and your lettuce and all that other fun stuff that they sell in produce sections. And then the about section is really important because that's where you kind of get to expand on the headline. So I always like the headline to kind of flow into the about section because we definitely have a bit of a formula, and I'll just go over that really quick for the about section, but it's really important. First paragraph or two should always like list more specifically who you're targeting in terms of audience slash prospects, and then kind of identify their pain, and but do that in a very storytelling way. You can look at my profile to kind of see how I've done that, and then you provide some like very basic education. So education about about the problems that you solve. Hopefully it's in regards to the problem that you presented in the paragraph above.
got it.
Next, you have, that's where you can start talking about yourself a little bit more. So up until this point, you're always framing things as being directed at the person who's reading your profile without talking about yourself. After you've kind of proven your case a little bit, you could then start talking a little bit about yourself in terms of here's how we help, and just list something really short down there, and then have a paragraph that's a call to action. If you're facing these problems, let's have a conversation whether or not we work together. I'm sure our call will provide valuable insight for your situation. Have your contact information down there. If you have a Calendly type of calendar, you can have that down there too, because ideally you want people to contact you directly from your about section.
Right. It's almost like your sales page or like a website in some way, but in
Right.
a value add. So let me ask
Yeah.
you one other question because I know we're wrapping up here, but for people that work for employers, right, as opposed to entrepreneurs, do you find like the featured section is a nice way to promote some of the more current product offerings that they're selling, or where, how can they make sure that
Yeah,
that's
sure.
captured? Because I think in my experience looking at my news feed, people that work for other people aren't the ones generating a ton of content. And I feel like there's a huge opportunity there to differentiate yourself, whether, whether you
Yeah.
work for yourself or work for an employer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if someone who is working for a company and that company puts out content, you can share their posts directly, and then you can then bring that into your featured section. You can either bring in your post about their post, or sometimes you can even just, if you want, depending on the situation, you can just link to their post directly and then have the company's post lie in there too. It just depends on how you want to do it. It's one of those every case is unique type of things, but that is one way to do it.
Okay, I like that because I guess that's a great point because I have seen people reshare their company post, but it'll be like, "What an honor to be a part of this project," or
Yeah.
"Here's the area that I gotta meet with so and so and so and so and so and so." Like they can make it their own, even though it's a company generated piece of content.
Right, except instead of doing it like how you just said,
Yeah,
they
I knew
should
I
be
was wrong.
adding
I
their
see this.
own. Yeah, no, I'm just and you're citing other people and I knew that, but if you are going to do that, you meaning the audience, make sure that you add your value even to a company post.
Okay, I love that. That has to be our lens for everything in 2024 and beyond, and that's how
Yep,
we sales social.
yep.
So I will link Bob's profile in the show notes if we all want to creep on Bob. We're not going to catfish him or
Yeah,
any of the bad habits.
I
Um,
know. I know.
how else? I mean, can you talk a little bit more about how people can work with you and find you? Because I feel like the content and the value you're putting out in the world is important and people will want to work with you. So how can people work with you if they're interested?
Yeah, so socialsaleslink.com. We have kind of two big lanes that we work in. One is corporate, where we design all types of programs and things like that for specifically for corporations. We go in and we make over all of the profiles of their salespeople and quite frankly, anyone else that they want to too, but we concentrate on salespeople. And then we take them through our entire process in terms of using LinkedIn and social selling. That could be 4 weeks to 6 weeks, depends on what the client wants, but it's all very customizable. We also offer full sales navigator training, which is something that we didn't even touch on here just because I don't think this audience necessarily uses sales navigator a lot. But if you're wondering what sales navigator is, it's basically LinkedIn on steroids. There's so much more going on there. It's targeted specifically at salespeople, but it's really expensive. So
That's what I've heard. Yeah, I haven't
so we've
played with
got
it much yet.
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not cheap. And then we have more of the public area to where we have like group coaching. We are rolling out all types of new things coming up here in 2024. So I don't want to get a lot into it. If you just go to socialsaleslink.com and then we've got for profession, I'm trying to remember. I don't have the site up right now, but it's very easily navigable. If you want to get in touch with me, either go to my LinkedIn profile directly. I'm very easy to find or just socialsaleslink.com/Bob, and that'll take you to my page. And there's even a calendar there to book a 15-minute meeting with me.
Awesome. Yes, I love it. Oh, well, Bob, I am so grateful to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing your 20 years of expertise with us on the LinkedIn platform outside of your sales expertise. I am so grateful for it. I'm going to go back and re-listen to this episode too because I want to profile makeover, then come back to you and get you
There
to
you go.
approve it.
We'll get
We'll
the
do before and
makeover.
after.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Bob, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the next coaching call because I love the group and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Love having you there. Thank you very much. Appreciate it,
Thanks
sir.
for joining.